So, Kim Jong-un of North Korea will be visiting Russia. Yes, it's happening, and the pro-Western countries in the region are already shitting in their pants. The West and their media machinery have been condescendingly claiming that Russia is begging for weapons from Kim, and I ask, what's wrong with that? Japan and South Korea have been sending weapons to Ukraine for use by their Western allies from day one. Literally every country in Europe has maintained an endless stream of weapons shipment to Ukraine since the start of the war, to the point that most of them are now bankrupt. What about America, and the insane amount of money they've spent on weapons shipped to Ukraine? And there's no letting up, other than Belarus or probably one or two other allies. Russia for the most part has just been relying on their weapons manufacturing capacity, being that they're one of the world's biggest weapons manufacturers. But no matter your weapons manufacturing capacity, you can never rely on what you have alone to face the number of nations that have teamed up to fight Russia through Ukraine in this senseless proxy war. You need allies, and if North Korea is the ally, your opponents should be worried, for so many reasons. Yes, North Korea will likely support Russia with light weapons and stuff, but it won't be for nothing. Russia is a big brother to both China, North Korea and most of the guys in that region militarily. They owe so much of what they know, do, and own militarily to Russia. Russia has a lot of military tech to transfer to North Korea, and the opportunity to end North Korea's age-long isolation by the West has just presented itself, given that North Korea is about the most sanctioned country on earth, and they could care less. There's no way North Korea won't jump on this, and they'll likely put their pro-Western southern neighbors in their place. Keep in mind, the US has an impressive presence in their South Korean base, and it's been there for ages. Since there's now a proxy war between the US, the West and Russia through Ukraine, do you not see that courting North Korea is a masterstroke? North Korea is literally a military nation with nuclear and all kinds of weapons begging to be deployed. There's a good reason why South Korea is always catching cold whenever North Korea coughs. Trump saw the danger of losing North Korea to a potential foe, and he made a smart move to court them first. And the mainstream media, which works for the criminals that run the unipolar world, literally tore him to shreds. Today, his worst nightmare has come through, and I believe these are some of the reasons Trump became emotional at a recent event. Biden has buried America, and all you hear from the media is praises. Imagine if Trump was the one making gaffes every time he opened his mouth. Imagine if he was the one always losing his way and wandering off on stage and talking about unrelated stuff due to cognitive decline. Imagine what CNN and the mainstream media would have done to him. Well, this has just happened, and it will be added to the list of the many losses of the United States of America, under Joe Biden, like they did after losing Saudi Arabia, and other key allies to BRICS, even though North Korea was never an ally, who knows? Maybe they'll soon be sending senior State Department officials to North Korea, to try to convince Kim that Russia is bad and USA is better in bed. So sad. Good on Russia. Now on Niger Republic. After Russia's intelligence accused the US of plotting to assassinate the head of the Nigerian junta, Burkina Faso army units have been flown into Niger. Units of the Burkina Faso army arrived in Niger within the framework of a partnership between the two countries to train and develop the capabilities of the two countries' forces in the field of combating terrorism. They landed on September 7 at Tahua Airport. The Military Council in Niger said that the deployment of Burkina Faso army units in Niger is not directed against the ECOWAS group. On his part, Kassim Koulibaly, Burkina Faso's Minister of Defense, said that sending military forces to Niger would enhance counter-terrorism operations, adding that Niger's security is closely linked to Burkina Faso's. Mali and Burkina Faso had earlier deployed combat aircrafts in Niger. As it should be, no one on the Nigerian side of things is sleeping with two eyes closed, until this great African victory is cast on the stones of time. All African eyes must be on Niger, whether online or on site. We will guard it with everything in us. Thank God for the gift of Russia at this time. On the other news, the Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, goes on an executive rant about the International Criminal Court, ICC, and says he doesn't understand why Brazil signed up for ICC's jurisdiction. In the interpretation that I accessed, Lula said, "I'm not saying I'm going to withdraw from the ICC right away. I didn't even know such a court existed. But I want to know why the US didn't sign the agreement, why India didn't sign the agreement, why China didn't sign the agreement, why Russia didn't sign the agreement but Brazil did. What made Brazil do it? If you have a better interpretation than this, please put it in the comment section." For me, I agree with Lula. ICC is as useless as its creators. Forward-thinking, forward-looking, free nations have no business with ICC. ICC was created for the slaves, the colonies of colonial Europe in Africa and elsewhere. It was never meant to indict anyone from anywhere else but those colonies. It was created as a scaremongering, bullish institution to scare African politicians who have balls big enough to challenge the pillaging of our Commonwealth by countries like France and their European friends. That's why they did what they did to Gbagbo of Ivory Coast, just so their French-baked Alassane Ouattara would be installed to protect and promote France's interests in Ivory Coast. ICC hasn't seen or heard of the evils of France and colonial Europe on the continent of Africa, I guess. ICC doesn't function when African puppets of colonial Europe kill, maim, steal and loot the treasury dry on behalf of the colonials. They look the other way as these killer, corrupt politicians and their families are given red carpet reception in Europe with bloodstained shoes. They only swing into action whenever the colonials tell them to, whenever the interests of the colonial forces are threatened. That's ICC for you. ICC is a colonial insult on our collective consciousness as a people. It is, like the UN, one of the most obnoxious creations of the fading unipolar world order. No sane nation on earth worth its onions should have anything to do with that selective justice organization called ICC. Bush declared war on Iraq, hundreds of thousands died and afterwards, they admitted there was no weapon of mass destruction, which was the dummy they sold to Americans and the whole world as their reason for entering Iraq. NATO destroyed Gaddafi in Libya, and years later, Libya is worse than a shadow of its boisterous and prosperous self. After Western leaders have led regimes marred with senseless wars and won on losses of lives. But the ICC has never seen anything wrong or declared any one of them a war criminal. But Vladimir Putin is a war criminal because he resisted NATO for failing to respect its own commitment not to expand eastwards towards Russia's borders, something that neither America nor any European country would tolerate in 1,000 lifetimes. But the mainstream media and the ICC aren't gonna see that. Of course, they won't. ICC is a sham court, a total scam. So, yes, Lula was right to ask how on earth a nation like Brazil would sign their destinies away like that. Thank God there's a little opportunity to file for divorce and end the obviously toxic and parasitic relationship to save lives. I already know Brazilians will soon pull out of it, and I know they'll probably do so at the same time as the South Africans, especially now that the effective consolidation of BRIC structures is in full swing. There's really a method to every madness and every slavery has an expiry end. Viva Mother Africa. God bless Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. God bless Africa, God bless Biafra and may God bless Russia. Have a blessed day, stay safe and stay tuned for more updates.